So thank you for joining me today. We appreciate you taking the time to answer some of our questions. Let's begin with a brief introduction of yourself, your role in your company.
Sure, that sounds good. So my name is Galen McNamara. I'm the CEO and founder of Summa Silver, a company that we started in 2020. By trade, I'm a geologist, that really gave me, I think, a leg up in choosing the projects and finding the projects. And really what we did for us, our focus is these two historic, prolific silver producers that in their time were very, very big producers and really helped shape that part of the American West during the late 1800s, early 1900s. But the thing that is interesting for us when we first started working on them is that even though there's all this past production, there was never any real modern exploration. And that's for us, that's our sweet spot. So applying modern techniques, and oftentimes you'll find that there's in these places a lot of metals left to discover, in our case a lot of silver.
As a participant in the Nordic Funds Mines conference, what are your key objectives for attending, and how do you hope this event will contribute to your company's goals in the current mining landscape?
Yeah, you know what, that's a good question, and I'll start real big picture. You know how many mining companies exist on the TSX Venture Exchange? It's something, there's hundreds and hundreds of them, right? So how does an investor really separate between what's good and what's bad? And the really, for me, one of the main focuses is meeting as many people as I can in person and meeting new people. This is my first time in Sweden so far. Not so far, I love it. I was up in Östersund a couple days ago to see a uranium project, which was very interesting, that a friend of mine is working on. And it's really about introducing the story to as many new potential investors as possible, especially within the backdrop of increased silver and gold prices in the last, say, couple weeks. I think just earlier today, gold was touching 2,700. It's pulled back a bit subsequently. But when times are good in at least in the commodities prices, that's the time for us to get our story out in a bunch of places, and that's what we're doing now.
In light of recent geopolitical tensions and supply chain disruptions, how's your company working to ensure, now or in the future, resource security and maintain its competitive advantage in the global market?
Yeah, so resource security, I think, is a huge emerging theme since the war with Ukraine really started. The war on Ukraine, I should say, really started by Russia. So, that means that nowadays, more and more so, and this is going to continue over, I think, at least the next decade, securing domestic supplies of important metals is very, very important. So we're looking at, we're working on, 2 silver projects in the United States. I'm a geologist, and let me tell you, good silver assets are very hard to find. Very, very difficult to find. They're rare and therefore valuable. And we've got 2 of them. So, why is silver important? As maybe a strategic metal, even though it's not classified as a strategic metal. Well, a little bit of solar goes into every solar panel. I think that's now a mainstream idea, almost, at least in the mining industry, that everybody knows that. But also, emerging new kinds of batteries and EVs, may use a lot of silver, and it's a relatively small market. Something like 900 million ounces a year of production. Now, if all of a sudden you add demand for hundreds and hundreds of millions of ounces from new technologies, we want that silver domestically sourced. It will just make our lives and our quality of lives for the things we want to build so much better.
With the growing focus on ESG within the mining industry, how are you leveraging this conference to showcase your company's initiatives to the Nordic investment community, known for its strong emphasis on responsible investing?
Yeah, well, you know what? Again, ESG. Nowadays in exploration, it used to be when I was first starting out, exploration was just the main focus, the main pillar of a company. Nowadays, certainly, when you're working, community engagement is a very, very big piece of of our approach. Environmental excellence is a very big piece of our approach. For companies like ours, those 2 things are of critical concern and something that we work on pretty hard.
Your recent drilling at the Hughes property in Nevada has yielded some impressive high-grade intercepts. How do these results compare to historical production grades at the Tonopah district, and how might they influence your exploration strategy and resource delineation plans moving forward?
Yeah, so grade is of course the key thing. We've heard the cliche, grade is king. So the Tonopah district produced historically at about 1,200 grams per ton silver equivalent, silver and gold. Now, and our holes are well within that range for sure. But what they had to deal with then, their margins were much higher, so they really had to chase the high grade. Today, hundreds of grams per ton can also make money, but of course we're looking for the thousands of grams per ton. But how does that how does that affect our strategy? Well, for us, it's just about, I like to keep it simple. The best place to look for a new mine is right next to the old mine. So we do with that being said, though, we do some pretty complex and detailed geologic models that have led to some very good drill targets that have worked out pretty well.
Summa Silver has been expanding its footprint in both Nevada and New Mexico. Can you elaborate on your strategy for balancing exploration efforts between the Hughes property and the Mogollon property? How do you prioritize capital allocation between these two potentially significant silver districts?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's something that I get asked literally all the time, because when you have two projects, you kind of have to maybe choose one. But to put it in perspective historically, we've drilled 62 holes at the Hughes project in Nevada and 22 holes at the Mogollon project in New Mexico. So I think that kind of puts it into perspective so far. It's been about, 3-1 that would be. And I think that, high-grade silver ounces, in places like Nevada, are very, very valuable because it's the #1 mining jurisdiction in the world for investors. I don't know if it is this year, I think it is, but if it's not, it's always in the top 3.
With the increasing focus on critical minerals for the energy transition, how do you see Summa Silver's high-grade silver projects fitting into the broader narrative? And are there any other plans to emphasize potential byproduct metals for your exploration strategy?
Yeah, well, you know what? For us, our projects are silver and gold. We're not working with things like zinc or byproducts of lead, maybe a bit of copper around, but primarily silver and gold. Silver is, I'm going to use another cliche, the new green metal, with a little bit of silver going into every solar panel, or maybe a little bit more silver going into every EV. When you're looking at massive build-outs of these things, that ends up being a lot of metal and a lot of demand. I would say a scary material amount of demand if you're worried about where you're going to source your silver from in the next 5 to 10 years. So that's really, I think it's not classified as a critical metal, but it certainly is critical to thinking about new green technologies.
Well, again, I appreciate you taking the time to answer a few of our questions. It was really interesting to learn more about your company and your base of operations, and wishing you the best of luck for the remainder of the conference.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, great conference.
Thank you.